Hello and welcome back to Paranormal NL Podcast, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. That's PNL Podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, Jen Nosworthy. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 on that Gulf. For tonight's UPRN segment number 30, I've got a special guest from Ohio waiting backstage who I'll bring on shortly. I hope everyone out there is having a relaxing summer evening. Now it's time to grab a cold one and get ready for tonight's show. ParanormalNL Podcast is sponsored by the BOG team. It's a boots-on-the-ground BOG team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland, Canada. PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. If you'd like to be a guest on my show or have a historical or a heritage building that you'd like investigated in Newfoundland, contact us at paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com and follow PNL Podcast on the link tree at Paranormal NL Podcast and the BOG team. Now let's get on with the show. Tonight, I have all the way from Ohio, I've got Austin Lawrence. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Austin, should I say welcome back? Now, to the folks who are on UPRN, you might not know, but on I think you were on season 2. Yes, episode 105 on Paranormal NL Podcast, the last time I had you on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to be back.
Yeah. So what's going on in Ohio? And tell us? Okay. Introduce yourself to the people at UPRN who don't know who you are.
Yeah. So I'm Austin. I'm a paranormal investigator, author, filmmaker, something in there. I've been in paranormal for master of none, that type of thing. But I've been in the paranormal for 10, 15 years now. So it's kind of been my passion.
Yeah, you do it all. You got a lot of stuff going on. Tell us about your new stuff that you got going on, Austin.
Yeah, so I've been working for about the past year on the first season of my new show, The Dead Chronicles. I've done some paranormal shows in the past, but this time it's me, and that's it. So it's been kind of some growing pains trying to get everything nailed down, but now that everything's nailed down, I'm starting filming for season 2 next month. So
oh wow, I can't wait. So you already got season 1 nailed down?
It is about 80% nailed down. I'm hopefully going to finish it tonight and get everything nailed down, and then hopefully come out in a month or 2 is the plan.
Can you give us any teasers of what's going on in your Dead Chronicles?
A lot. It is very much kind of, if you can think back to your maybe season 1, season 2 Ghost Hunters type of vibe. It's kind of raw. It's real. It's very personable, and it's just, I'm me, and that's what you're gonna get. There's no overreacting. There's no acting. It's just paranormal investigation and history, and that's what you're gonna get.
Now, you stay overnight, right? You don't just go in during the day and look around, or, how many days do you usually stay at the location?
Yeah, I definitely stay overnight. For season 1, some of these places I've stayed like 5 or 6 nights, just to get everything done. Because like I said, it's just me. So to film interviews, to film talking heads, to investigate, to do all this stuff, B-roll, it takes a lot. But I found a way to kind of trim off the fat and make it a lot easier. So season 2, I don't have to pay, $4,000 or $5,000 just to rent out a location for one episode because I'm broke. So,
well, a lot goes into it. People don't realize how much goes into production and all the equipment and like you said, even just the background of getting the history off of the place, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of research and work that goes into it. Even people don't realize, just like reviewing stuff. Most episodes I have probably around 1,000 hours of video and audio to review before I can even start the episode.
Wow. Yeah.
And being one man and working a full-time job, it's It's rough.
I can imagine. I mean, it when you talk about production, you really got to sift through it. You got to get the EVPs and get all the stuff lined up, and you're hoping it's going to line up with some of the history and what some of the people are saying is there, right? And did you have most of your stuff line up, or did you have any big surprises while you were doing some filming?
So there were some big surprises throughout the process. The final episode is going to be the big surprise. And that's just a wild story. I don't know if we want to get into it, but I'm more than willing to. But a lot of stuff does line up too, and that's always really cool to see that you're talking with someone who lived there, who experienced this history, and you get firsthand accounts from someone who's lived these things,
Did you want to talk a little bit about any of it, or without, divulging too much for your season coming out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had 5 locations this first season. The first one there being the Nike missile base in Oxford, Ohio. That was a really cool place to be able to go into a military base.
Nice.
It's the first time I've ever been able to do that, and that was a crazy experience. And the other locations were in Indiana, and it ends with the episode that inspired the entire series. The reason why the Dead Chronicles exists is because of the Randolph County Asylum. And the Randolph County Asylum has a really well-known person who lived there named Ida Gunkel. And she had a very rough go out there. She started to lose her sanity because of the disease she had. And so they would lock her up in the basement because the Randolph County Infirmary was a working farm on a highway. And it's not good when she would wander out at night into a farm field or into a highway. So,
okay.
Yeah. So they decided the best thing that they could do was lock her up in the basement during nighttime, and daytime just let her out.
Gosh.
Well, one night she just had enough, and she ended up taking her life down in the basement. And since then, there's been people who go down there and they treat her differently. They treat her as this crazy woman. And, once you start with crazy woman down there, then all of a sudden, now she's attacking people. Now she's, all these things. It's like the game of telephone, and all of a sudden we don't have a depiction of who this woman was in life. And it really bothered me, especially when people go down there and ask her questions like, well, how did it feel when you died? If she's down there, having her relive the worst moments of her life.
Yeah, I've had a lot of investigators talk about that and how they don't like to be, I guess you would say, circus people, like, do this, touch that, tell me about this. They get sick of the same questions, right? I mean, they want to talk to you as a normal person. And I think they respond more to when you're totally off guard and you're doing something or talking to somebody about something completely different.
Right.
They seem to respond more, right?
Yeah. It's because that's probably one of the few human interactions that they get, right? Because everything else seems so kind of scripted, because we have these questions on a sheet that every investigator has to ask. And once you kind of get off that script and you're like, hey, you're just a person. I can't see you, but you're just a person. Then you start to get more activity. But so the show was modeled off of her, and the Dead Chronicles being the stories about her that had died off and been replaced by these new stories. And so that was the main focus. And what I eventually did was, there was somewhere out there was a graveyard out there, supposedly 50 graves that had been lost. And I ended up raising enough money to bring someone down, Billy Wilkerson, an amazing individual who does ground penetrating radar and goes and restores old cemeteries. He came down from about 6-7 hours away, and we managed to find not 50 graves, but I think the latest count's around 250.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. Yeah, you know, the ground penetrating radar and technology is amazing. It's awesome. And I love that you're bringing back to life the stories of the people. And is that some of your passion, like finding out like who were these people and just trying to tell their story?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I always say if we keep the stories alive, then we keep those individuals alive too. It's no different if you have a loved one who had passed away. You sit there and you talk about them, you feel like they're right there with you, like they're still living,
Right.
whether or not in the physical sense or not. But we can keep these people and their stories alive because their stories are so insanely important, even if it's individuals that we don't necessarily look up to in society. Like, for example, one of the places I filmed at was the church that Jim Jones grew up in. Not a great individual, but there's still so much that we can learn from that story.
Now,
And
did you want to tell us about that story?
yeah, so Jim Jones, he grew up in a small town outside of Lynn, Indiana. It was called Crate, I believe. Crete. There's some pronunciation to it. But he grew up there, and what had happened when he was a child, his parents didn't care about him. They were on drugs, alcohol, and because of all these things, his dad was in the war, and he was subjected to a chemical attack, and so he couldn't work. His health was bad, and essentially what they did is they just threw him outside, and he would roam the streets hungry and naked
Oh my
and just
gosh.
not
Who
knowing what
does
to
that?
do.
Right?
Right. And, their family was so poor that they would literally go into the woods and try to hunt for food and try to scavenge berries and stuff like that. And they ended up living in this little like shack that had no electricity, no running water. They had nothing. And
Jeez.
so here's this little boy with no parents that cared about him, this horrible outlook on life. And he was taken in by these women at this church.
Okay.
And so that's where that's where he really grew up at.
Mhm.
And that's where he started to get his interest in religion and everything.
Okay.
And the sad thing is that now this church, the town hates it. And just because Jim Jones had grown up there, and I just had to stop and think, the amazing work that the people in this church did. They did their best to raise this kid. They raised money for, the community. They helped out families and everything. And, could you imagine saying, oh, yeah, I was a preacher here and then everyone just looks at you like,
Right.
because of the evil that Jim Jones did afterwards. And it's interesting because
Can you
a
tell
lot of,
the viewers who don't know what he did?
yeah, so Jim Jones was a great air quotes person in the beginning. And he amassed this cult following. He was the first person to have an integrated church. It didn't matter what your background was. It didn't matter what color your skin was. It didn't matter your sexual orientation. He welcomed you. He loved you. And he even adopted kids from Africa. And back then, having a white man adopt kids from Africa was obviously extremely controversial. But to him, he would say, this is God's will. We're all God's people. He was really important for integrating a lot of restaurants and stuff in Indiana. And so he was really doing a lot of really good things. And then he goes off to California and starts the People's Temple. Now, a lot of people say that if he would have gotten in a car crash and didn't make it to live to get to California, he would be known as a hero and a great person, which I agree with. But after he got the People's Temple started, then they go and they start this Jonestown overseas. And, he basically said, you come here, we're building this commune. You just sell all of your stuff. We're going to get away from the evil in the world that's, existent. We're going to cut ties with all of it. And we're going to live a good, godly life. And I think a lot of the issue came from not only his narcissism, but his rampant drug usage at this point. He started to kind of lose his mind. And they would start holding these white nights where they would go through the motions of this mass suicide. Because he said at one point in time, these people are not going to like our ways and they're going to come after us. And it just kind of became routine to them until the point where it actually happened. And we're talking about thousands of bodies now at this point. We're talking about babies that mothers would give this poison to.
Gosh, that's not good.
Yeah, and it's such a crazy story. And a lot of people say, well, I don't see how people could do that. And when you talk to people who had been in cults, they always say, we don't join cults. We join a place to belong, and then it ends up becoming a cult. And some people kind of say it's like we all know someone who's in an abusive relationship. We don't know why they stay, but they stay. And it's kind of the same thing. So like these stories are so important to get out there because of that. We can look at these and now we have these warning signs where we can step back and look. Am I being manipulated? Am I being gaslit? Is this where I need to be? We need to trust our gut feelings and stuff like that. So whereas, a town says we need to tear this down, this is terrible, I look at it differently. And I say, what can we take from this and learn from it to better society as a whole?
Yeah. A lot of different communities, have their own little sorts of history where a lot of people don't want to talk about it, and it is difficult to talk about it. And I'm sure there's a lot of spirits who want their stories told about what happened to them.
Absolutely. I always feel like the most uncomfortable conversations are the ones that we need to have the most. And we also need to, for the spirit's sake who still may be there, we need to get their stories out, because we don't need to be demonizing them for what someone did years after they had left that establishment, especially when they did everything they could to help that person.
Yes, 100%. So do you want to switch gears and talk a little bit about your books for the folks who don't know about your books?
Yeah, my first one is Taylor Mill Horror. That is about a location in Taylor Mill, Kentucky. What had happened was I was going to investigate Bobby Mackey's at the time, and I was offered this place to stay at, supposedly haunted, and I thought, supposedly haunted, okay, it's not haunted, but you're giving me a place to stay, I am 100% in. And that place ended up being not only the most haunted place I've ever been to, but the most terrifying place that I've ever been to. The only place in all my years where I said, and still say, that I don't ever want to step foot back in there.
I was just going to ask you, have you ever gone back?
Well, so the first time that we went, we just were there for one night, not playing investigator or anything. And all this stuff started happening. We said, we are not coming back to this location.
What's the worst thing that happened to you there? For the folks who didn't, listen to your episode with me on PNL Podcast when you were on in season 2, episode 105.
That is a good question. Because I want to say the worst thing was probably getting thrown up against the wall.
Ooh.
But really, that wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing was the psychological impact that the week that we spent in the house had, going days, weeks afterwards. There was a deep psychological impact there from everything we experienced.
Austin, you stayed there after that happened?
Yeah. Like very smart people. After we said we wouldn't go back, we decided to go back for about another week and a half, 2 weeks, and stay there.
Oh my gosh, that's next level. So it did that to you, and you still had to go back, I guess, because hey, they offered it to you and it was free. But maybe there's a reason why it was free.
You're not wrong. And the interesting thing about that place and so many places like it is that the owner even spoke about when the house wasn't even up for sale yet, he would go stand in the driveway and just stare at it. Now, this is a house in the middle of nowhere, and he doesn't know why he felt called to this house. And even when all these horrible things were going on, he did not want to leave the home. Even though his family got torn apart, even though the first time we visited, he was on his deathbed at the time because of what he said was in that house was doing to him. And when we were there, we could have left at any second, and we probably should have. But we never left the inside of the home. We literally got enough food to survive for 2 weeks, and we stayed in that home the entire time.
What happened to the other folks who were in there with you?
So I was there with just one other individual. He was not nearly as affected as I was. And he was also the one who was more aggressive with whatever may be going on. I was trying to tell him, like, hey, let's tone it down. The only time that he decided, okay, maybe it is time to tone down was when we experienced a paranormal earthquake. And
a paranormal earthquake.
Yeah. And the reason why it took me so long to put this book out, there's 15 versions of it, was because the stuff that I experienced was stuff that I never believed in. And one of those is the idea of this paranormal earthquake where we were laying in bed and trying to get some sleep. And then it just sounded like a freight train just like going through this place. Huh. And all of a sudden, the entire house starts shaking. Stuff is flying off of the walls. And we're just sitting there terrified, like, what do we do right now? Wow. And we were just frozen in fear. And, you know, I thought, okay, it had to be an actual earthquake. The next day, we went and talked to all the neighbors. We checked the seismic activity. There was nothing in that area. Whatever happened was just that house. And it was something that not even the homeowner had ever experienced. But it happened after I got pushed against the wall. Then I thought it'd be a good idea to go through and try to cleanse the house.
Well, I'm doing a bit of sage here for you right now.
Yeah. They didn't like that there.
I can imagine.
They were not fans.
My gosh. Yeah, that must have felt horrible. And then afterwards, I guess you had a lot of nightmares and stuff, or did you just tell it, hey, stop and put it in its place? Or
there was no stopping it after that. There was definitely nightmares after that. There was something that followed me after that. It was just a very, very, very dark time for quite a while, and also just terrible luck. So on my way down there, I had 2 flat tires. The day before, I got hit by a car walking in a parking lot.
What?
That same day, I had a 6-foot pallet that has like the gallon jugs of water fall on top of me and bury me.
Oh my gosh, Austin. So yeah. Maybe your guardian was trying to get you not to go there.
And that's kind of what I figured, and that's what we talked about. And my buddy said, so what do we do? And I said, well, we get 3 spare tires this time. And we go. And so we did.
Oh my gosh. Oh. You got to do what you got to do to get that evidence.
I mean, I have a terrible case I have since I was a kid where I'm very curious. And I have to know how everything works. I have to know the answer for everything. And even if I know it might be detrimental to me, I still got to know, because I can't be sit here wondering every single night, like, what would happen if? I don't like what ifs. I just go in, and whatever happens, happens. And then if I die knowing, right?
All the places that you went to, did you find any answers that you were wondering about?
Every time you find an answer, you got 5 million more questions.
I agree.
And even when you find an answer at location A, you'll find the exact opposite answer in location B.
Right.
So the only answer that I have found is that stuff exists and it's weird. That's all I've got for you. What is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people asking, is there life after death? And why, like, what happens afterwards? And, I mean, I don't think that they're allowed to tell us. And that's probably the reason why we find it so hard to capture them on audio and visual. And I don't think they're allowed to be doing it with us.
And it's crazy because, we talk about, life after death. When we go out, we're investigating, the people passed away. But one of the locations that I have in season 1, they said that it was still haunted by a man who used to work at that jail. And I'm just like, no. Because here's the thing. The man who used to work at that jail now owns the jail and is alive. And I'm like, no, that's no. But when I was there and I was just filming some daytime shots, and I was down the basement. I come up the stairs and I hear him talking. I'm like, oh, he came out. Okay, cool. So I go upstairs. There's no one there. Literally no one there. So I call him, like, dude, where are you? Like, I just heard you. He was about 45 minutes away working on another property.
Okay, so we had a doppelganger going on in the house, actually. Kind of thing.
Yeah, it could very well could be a doppelganger, could be, the asylum, for example. I had an experience probably about a year ago where I was standing up on the second floor and I see this man. There was a group tour, and I'd been on this tour many times. They're doing the history, so I'm just hanging out. And they're inside of a room, and I'm just hanging out in the hallway, just kind of leaning up against the wall, and I see this man walk out of this room and down the hall. I'm like, that's weird, but I didn't just see that. So I start focusing on it. About 5 seconds later, I see it again. And I'm like, okay, this is something that you never see, and you don't see it twice within like 10 seconds. Like, I'm going insane right now. And then a woman who is a volunteer out there came up the stairs because she had taken a girl to go downstairs to go to the bathroom, and she brought her back up. And so she stands next to me. And it happens again. And she said, did you see that man walk out of that room? And instantly I took off down the hall and I'm searching for it. And we found no explanation. But later, come to find out that this room is known for having some sort of time slips.
Okay, yeah. And it's interesting that she was able to see it also, because it's great when you have somebody with you who actually see it or hear it also, because when you're by yourself, you always question yourself, like, nah, yes. Like you said, right? Nah, that's not, no, I didn't see that, or I didn't hear that. But if somebody else is there and you capture it, then it's like, okay, let's look into this, right?
Yeah, it adds validation. To see that, 3 times within 30 seconds is crazy. But in that room, they've had people literally go there, come back a year later, and capture their own voice on EVP from a year prior and stuff like that.
Interesting. Now, do you think it could be like a mimicker ghost, or like some people call it like a joker ghost, just screwing with you? Because some of them like to do that, just screw with you, right?
Yeah,
and they openly say it on Spirit Box, I'm just playing.
Right, yeah, it very well could be some sort of trickster vibe. It could be a time slip. It could be literally anything. And I don't think we'll ever know.
It's hard to know, right? So do you want to tell folks a little bit about your other book?
Yeah, so Hell's Carnival was my fiction-based novel. It's kind of a graphic, well, it is graphic, novel that was based on 2 things. One was a reoccurring nightmare I had since I was a child up until adulthood. And in that time, I had instance where I witnessed a very brutal and tragic death. And so that started giving me nightmares. And the 2 nightmares started intertwining. And I'm like, I got to do something with this. So it's like, all right. And I just put it out in a book. Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty traumatic stuff.
Yeah, it was. And it was kind of it's weird to say, but it was my therapy. And when I say that, you're going to read it and be like, should we commit this guy?
Well, a lot of people use therapy, writing as therapy, because it does help. It helps you think through your thoughts about, what happened and try to piece them together. Have you ever had different Q's and A's or different people who experience the same thing talk about your experience or with you?
Not really, because the person I experienced with was in the same boat as me, and then everyone else who I talked to, a lot of my friends are like paramedics and stuff like that, and these people witnessed it, thousands of times. these types of things. So they understand, but it's difficult for them to relate to someone who's not. I'm not a doctor. I'm not in the medical field because I don't like that stuff. I don't like going in hospitals.
Yeah,
So
I guess like you said, I'm a nurse and I worked in the operation room and ER, and you get kind of desensitized to it, and you see some of these shows and sometimes you forget, oh yeah, like I've got this bloody old gown on and here I am talking to maybe somebody, and that's traumatizing for somebody to see all that blood, right?
right,
But
yeah.
it's normal. So yeah, sometimes you forget as a first responder that things
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that.
you have to, right? Because that's your day to day. And then eventually, there's the whole problem with, especially over here with mental health within, those fields. And once they get out of the field, it's just, then it all creeps back and, PTSD and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But,
a lot of people think it just happens to veterans, but no, it
oh
doesn't.
no,
It
oh
can
no.
happen to anybody for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So they become, you become desensitized to it at the moment. I think it's probably like a parent like cleaning up their child's vomit and stuff like that. Like that's disgusting, but you got to do it because that's your child. So you're kind of desensitized to it at that point. But you go out to a bar and someone throws up, and you're like, oh, like didn't you just clean this up? Yeah, it's different.
Oh my gosh. So do you have anything on your bucket list or a place that you haven't been yet that you want to investigate or go to or see, or maybe in one of your other seasons?
Oh man, in one of my seasons, well, I mean, my dream since I was a child has always been to go to Chernobyl. So
Oh,
that is still my all-time 100% bucket list location. As far as the seasons to come, I'm not really sure. I like to find the places that are not are not as well known, because some of these places have been done over and over again, and they
right.
deserve it. Like Waverly Hills, that place is amazing. I would go there a million times over. But I feel like those people have had their time to have their stories be told. So I like to try to find these other places that I don't even know about right now. In fact, the first place I'm filming at next month, it's absolutely insane. And it's not known. And the fact that a place like this even exists blows my absolute mind.
How long
And
did you stay in that place?
so I'm gonna be staying 2 nights.
2 nights.
Everything this season I'm gonna try to do in 1 to 2 nights. Hopefully, that's the plan. Because
Do you
like I
find the
said,
longer you stay there, the more they're apt at chatting with you or responding to you or hanging out with you, shall we say?
well, I think that really kind of depends. For me, pretty much anywhere that I go, for some reason, Mark Elliott Fultz, who I know you talk to,
Yeah, shout
um,
out to Mark.
Mark is absolutely phenomenal. Him and Sin.
Vincent Schrader Hill, yeah, they were both on several seasons, and
Yeah.
had Sin on season 3, episode 19, season 2, episode 61, season 2, episode 102. I gotta give them shout outs.
Oh, absolutely.
Mark Elliott Fultz, he was on season 2, episode 112, season 3, episode 19, and then again we have Eric Freeman Sims. He was on season 2, episode 55, and season 3, episode 28. So check out Mark, Sin, and Eric.
Absolutely. But they're phenomenal people who've been trying to kind of like help me understand. Mark says I'm on a certain vibration to where they feel more apt to come out and talk and stuff. I don't understand. I don't know. Mark does his Mark thing, and I just say, okay, Mark. But so for me, it's really, if I go into a location, I'm probably going to get activity. So much to the point where years ago, I quit the paranormal completely for about a year because I thought I was doing something wrong. Because I would go somewhere and I'd get too much evidence. And the stuff that I throw out is stuff that you would probably see on TV. Like, I'm so particular about what I put out there. But then I started to realize,
the more you look into a place or the more you look into the paranormal, the more it looks back at you.
yes. I 100% agree with you there. And as I continue on, I start to have more stuff kind of happen in my world. And it starts coming to you as opposed to you going to it. Even locations, you'll have,
right?
yeah, it's almost like it's calling to you. You'll have an experience and you're like, what is that? And then you'll realize it was related to a location. One interesting thing that I'll talk about, this is actually for season 2, one of the locations, but there was an incident where Mark tells me, he said, hey, you need to ask the owner of this place about this ring. And he described this ring. And I called her. I was like, hey, what's up with this ring? She was like, I have no idea what he's talking about. I was like, oh, okay. And so the day that we go there to film, she's getting ready. And from behind her mirror falls this ring that she had never seen before. That is exactly how Mark described it.
Really?
And she is freaking out.
He described the ring.
Absolutely. And she had never seen it. And he said it, it was down in the basement of this location. It was down in the mud. And she said I tried cleaning it and cleaning it and cleaning it. It took her like 5 or 6 times through her jewelry cleaner to get it clean. And I was like, Mark, what was that about? And he said, well, that's the location letting you know that, what I'm telling you is real and that this woman down there does exist. That was her sign to me to you through me to show you that this is what's going on there. So there's even things like that are so interesting and make my brain hurt. And I tell Mark all the time I hate him for it, but I love him at the same time.
It is interesting when it looks back at you, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it knows who you are. How do you feel about that, though? Does that freak you out?
It kind of used to. There's one location in Ohio that I love more than anything, and that is Prospect Place Mansion. I haven't been there in a while, but it was built to be part of the Underground Railroad. So much history there is phenomenal. But so I'd been there like 40 sometimes. I spent the night. I think the last time I went there was like night 45, and that was about a year or two ago. Because I used to rent the place out for like a week and just live there for a week because I loved it so much.
Okay.
And the last time that I went prior to this was probably about 2 years before. And so we're upstairs doing an Estes method, and all of a sudden the guy who was under starts talking about these things that lined up to the things that I experienced 2 years prior, down to, I remember we bought this pizza from this pizza place. We thought it was a good idea. We're like, just throw everything on it. And this pizza man shows up, and that pizza was like $48 for a medium pizza. And like, you gotta be kidding us. And all of a sudden, during this Estes method, he starts talking about this pizza and how expensive it was. And I'm like, you literally remember the stuff that happened to me years prior. Like, what is going on here? And it becomes creepy, but at the same time, it just blows your mind. Like,
yeah,
I don't understand it.
Do you like it when you go back to a place and it says, welcome back, or I remember you, I know you?
Yeah, now it's become very more kind of comforting, especially the asylum. After everything we did there, finding the graves and spending so much time there, I'm there all the time. I get that welcome every time I come back, so much to the point where I'm starting to see the apparitions of some of these people that other people have not seen. Okay. And it is so
you feel like they're starting to trust you more, kind of thing?
Absolutely. And now it's like you have become part of the family.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you stay there long enough, you've been there like a whole week. So you find that the longer you stay there, the more comfortable they are, hey?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case in many circumstances. If you stay there long enough, you become part of their group. And it's undescribable how that feels. When they have, thousands of people coming through those doors every single year, and for them to kind of make you a part of their family, of their group, to accept you in, to start showing you things that no one else gets to experience, to seeing these apparitions, to walking in here and someone say hello to you when there's no one there.
Mm-hmm.
It
but
is
at
so
the same
indescribable.
time, do you get freaked out thinking, okay, you're opening yourself up to all this stuff, but could it be something else you're opening yourself up to?
No, I really don't. And I get told by Mark and by so many other people, you need to take precautions, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I don't want to, because even if there's something there that is bad, I want to experience it, because if I can experience it, then I understand. And if you come to me and you say, "Oh, I had this happen," I'm like, "Oh, okay." It'd go back to kind of like what we were talking about earlier with, experience a tragic death and talking to someone who's, I can't understand what you went through. So
Right.
I've got nothing for you other than saying, "Oh, okay, that's crazy." So I want to be able to experience anything and everything, and I'm open to experiencing anything. Maybe not possession. This sounds a little extreme. Let's not go that far. But anything else, I'm open to. There's one place where Mark said, if you go in there, you'll probably get punched in the face. And pretty soon, I'm going to go in there, and I hope it happens, because there is a man who works out there who had been punched in the face by this unknown entity to where his entire face was black and blue.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I believe him. I 1,000,000% believe this man. And I, as crazy as it sounds, I want to experience that, because I don't even understand it. Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, like the time when you got, the ghost really messed you around. What did you say to it when it did that to you? Did you come back and say, "Hey, man, like, hands off"?
I mean, it's just kind of, at that point, it's just kind of a mutual respect thing. Like, because what a lot of people don't understand, especially investigators, is they go in asking for these things, especially when they go in to provoke, they go in asking for these things. Or when they go in just trying to communicate, they ask for these things. And then a lot of them will just run out. And it's like, this is what you asked for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you wanted this. So how are you going to react that way? How are you going to be? And that's one thing that really messed with me when a couple of years ago, when I was filming for a different project, we went to a hotel that had never really been investigated before. And one of these rooms, they said, is supposedly really haunted, and people would check out all the time. They were afraid to stay in there. And so we're in there investigating, and I said, we're not going to run out on you. We really want to hear your story. And I get this woman's voice on an EVP that says, "Thank you very much." And that really hit home with me.
Okay.
Because if you can imagine being stuck in a place for 10, 20, 30, 100 years, trying to tell your story, and every time you try to talk to someone, they run out on you, and you
Right, because
can't
they're
get that story
afraid
out.
or they don't understand. Yeah.
Exactly. I start to sympathize, and I think that's a lot why I do get activity, because I can sympathize and empathize with a lot of these, and I try to put myself in their position. So
that's a big part of it. So it sounds like you do a lot of the whole respect thing instead of the provoking, because I know some people are really big on the provoking, and I do not condone that at all. Like, do you have a certain technique that you like to use? I think you said you like to use old school methods too.
right. Yeah, I mean, I use old school methods. I go completely off of respect. The only time that I don't use, in episode 1 of the first season, you'll see it, is there was this space where this woman was supposedly physically attacked, and she was scratched, and she got stuff ripped off of her and stuff like that. And I think I always try to treat these like I would treat any other human being. And if I come up to a man who just attacked a woman, I'm not going to be as nice to them as I'm going to be to the next person. So there are times where I can get, and it's very rare where I can get more aggressive, but that's just because if you are a terrible person, that I don't know. I just treat them like I would treat normal people. And like I said, what you see is me, is genuinely me. There's no act, no nothing. So I'm not
because some
going.
ghosts are just plain mean, right? Or spirits, because if they're like that in life, then they're going to be like that in death too, right?
Exactly, 100%. So I'm a little less respectful with those people. At the same time, I want to experience things. So if you're telling me that if I go in here, I can get, a microphone ripped off me and I can get scratched, I want to try to experience that. Now, if it's someone who provokes for the wrong reasons, because the asylum, we were talking about Ida, there's people who have been attacked down there when they were provoking her. That's a whole different story. If you're provoking an innocent person and you get attacked, you 100% deserve that.
Yeah.
And you should have had that.
Yeah. A lot of people are into that kind of provoking stuff. But like you said, I mean, it all depends on the spirit. If they're getting mean with you, then, sometimes you just got to say, hey, back off, man,
Yeah, you have to stand your ground, 100%.
Yeah. So do you have any places that you haven't been around that you want to go? I know you mentioned some local places. Or if somebody was going to go, let's give a shout out to your hometown besides where you've mentioned. Are there any other paranormal tourism places there?
So around my area, there's not a whole lot within driving distance. Prospect Place is probably the closest one. There recently was a school that opened up that I am going to try to get to. But
I know we mentioned Sin Schrader Hill earlier. It looks like you guys are doing a middle-aged creep out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Middle-Aged and Creeped Out, they are an amazing podcast. Wonderful people. Some of my best friends. They just talk about the paranormal stuff like that, and they have a huge they're huge advocates for mental health and stuff like that. So that's a huge part of what they do as well. And every year they do this live show, and I got to be on it last time. For some reason, they decided to bring me back, and I said I will come back, but bring Sin Schrader Hill with me. And they said okay.
Sin is
I'm
awesome.
so excited. Sin is my favorite person to ever exist. And I tell her that all the time. She tells me to shut up, but she can't tell me to shut up on here. She is my favorite person to ever exist.
Well, you're going to have to give a few shout outs in the comment section during the watch party that we're going to have with this one. I have to give a couple shout outs to your fans. Now, it looks like let's see. I have another one here that you were on, the Unseen Paranormal. Shout out to Eric.
Yeah. He's got the Night House now. I've been there a couple times. It's a cool place. Trying to keep the history alive there, which I love. It's all about the history,
Oh, 100%. And there's so much of it. And that's, it seems like the more you do the paranormal, the more you like history.
Right.
Were you always a history buff, or did you just get into it while you started digging into stuff?
I always really loved history. Not necessarily the history they taught you in school, because they kind of teach that I don't care about government and geography, but I loved a lot of history. Whether it be the wars or the founding of the country, or there's so many different interesting parts. And it's so important because, obviously you don't want to repeat a lot of the history, and we can learn from the history. And that's the same thing that we're doing with the paranormal. We're talking to the history, trying to connect to the history, and we're trying to learn from them. And it's just, it all goes full circle. You cannot be in the paranormal field and not love history.
Yeah, I mean, with the Dead Chronicles, you're getting a lot of history out there about all the different places that you're going to. Is there any rumor of a third book?
Yes. There's rumor of a third and fourth, I believe. But one of them was going to be, and we're just all way too busy right now, but one of them's going to be co-authored by Sin Schrader Hill and Mark Elliott Foltz.
Yay! Yeah, they're fun.
I would be so honored to work with the both of them for a book, and we're going to do it. It's just Sin is working on books 12, 13, 14, 15. I don't even know what she's at anymore. She's got so many books, it's ridiculous.
She turns them out like butter, man.
Right. I don't know how she does it. I don't know. But
I don't know. But I know she gets a lot of stories from a lot of different people, and they're really good stories. And so are yours. And thank you for getting them out there for all the people out there. Is there anything else that you can think of that you want to talk about in relation to the Dead Chronicles, about how you do your investigation? I know we touched on it a little bit, and I asked to think about what's your favorite style. Like you had mentioned old school, like do you use the dowsing rods and stuff like that, or do you like more of the equipment?
Yeah, I'm definitely old school. I have maybe like one or two new school devices in my bag. but I love the old school stuff. One of the cool things is that Mark, for the first season, I was a complete skeptic of Mark. You know, I'd never believed in psychic mediums. He really proved himself to me. And he would do these remotes where I would walk through the location and he would read it and he would give me names and stuff like that. And they were always spot on. So season 2, he's going to be on every episode. He's even coming out with Sin to film next month. And
I like that.
I am so excited. But that's going to be a new tool that's going to be used.
You're definitely going to have to check them out on season 3, episode 19. They're like, I did a recording with them together. So yeah, and also watch them on the Dead Chronicles. You're going to love them.
They are phenomenal.
Spot on, right?
What's that?
Like you said, Mark is spot on when it comes to like the remote stuff, right?
It is ridiculous. Even going back to the side where I talk about finding the graves, there's a big long story behind all of it, but I reached out to him because I was so terrified because I had put up a lot of my own money and raised a lot of money and brought this guy, 6-7 hours one way to come try to find these graves. And like I said, we're talking about a huge, what used to be a massive poor farm, hundreds of acres. And there's supposedly this graveyard somewhere. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, what if we can't find this? What if I fail this? Everyone who has donated, I fail myself. I fail the spirits. I fail this man who drove this far. And so I'm having this panic attack nonstop for like a week up until the day he comes. And I said, Mark, help me out. And he said, sure. He comes back the next day, draws me a map. He says, here's your graves. I'm like, okay, Mark.
I love that.
The man shows up. He's like, do you have any idea? I said, look, I got this map that this psychic medium drew. Do whatever you want with it. He's like, all right, let's go check it out. We get to the spot. He's like, yep, here's your graves. Like, you got to be kidding me.
You're like, how did you know?
Right. And the story gets even more wild from that. But he has proven himself time and time and time again to where I can no longer be a skeptic of him as much as I want to. And even in the first season, I tried him because he said, don't tell me anything about the location you're visiting. I don't want to know what they are, what state, what city. I don't want to know anything. So weeks prior, and I told him about this afterwards, and he laughed about it. Weeks prior to the first investigation, I start posting this stuff on Facebook because we were Facebook friends about this location I'm going to, I'm visiting, I'm posting all this stuff, some history, some stories. I was never going to that location. I just wanted to see if Mark would start giving me information from what he saw me post. So I'm acting like I'm going to this location. I'm not going to this location.
Flag out to see if he would.
He did not bite at all.
Okay.
At all.
That's good to know, right?
Right.
Say, they're just going to go on social and find this and that. But
exactly. That's what I thought because we've seen it so many times. He would not bite. And I was like, okay, Mark. Okay.
You got to follow Mark Elliott, folks.
He is the real deal. He is the realest deal I've ever met.
Yeah, awesome. And what's the picture in the background that you have behind yourself?
Yeah, so that's actually Prospect Place Mansion. I didn't get to film there yet, unfortunately. I'm going to try to. They are another place that's been an unfortunate side effect of kind of what we were talking about. They used to allow filming, but then they had a bunch of people come in and start naming it the Demon House.
Oh, okay.
So all of a sudden we have this extremely important historical place that people have started to try to label the Demon House when there's nothing demonic there. There's nothing like that, but a bunch of YouTubers went in there and tried to label it that.
Yeah, unfortunately that happens, right? That's too bad.
So I understand why they started saying, okay, we're not going to allow filming here anymore because the history is more important than, your YouTube video. But I'm going to try to get a hold of them. I'm going to try to get back in there and hopefully film there one day because it has such an amazing story to tell.
Yes, 100%. Now, when you go in there, when you use your video taping and stuff like that, do you bring in a bunch of stuff like static cams, X cams, and how many different cameras do you bring in?
So I run 4 static cams for sure at all times. And then I have my 2 cameras I use when I investigate, and then I've got 2 other cameras I can place up anywhere. And then I have 2 tape recorders that I'll put out, and then 2 other audio recorders. So I'll carry one with me, and I might put the other one out. So I try to cover the places as much as I can for as long as I can, which is great until I get home and I'm like, why did I do that to myself?
Well, I was just thinking post-production. OMG. Like, how long does it take you to go through all that stuff?
Forever.
You know?
That's why I'm trying to cut it down to one night investigating for this season.
Do you keep it running 24/7 or do you just yeah, okay.
You never know what you're gonna miss.
Exactly, because if a place is haunted, it's going to be haunted in the daytime too. So it don't matter if it's not, people wait, oh, the witching hour. No, if it's haunted, it's haunted. You go in the daytime, you're going to catch something too, right?
Absolutely. I've had plenty of experiences during the daytime, and season 1, you'll start to see there's one place in particular where I left the location, and then everything starts to go crazy. And I captured all kinds of insane stuff on all the cameras that if I would have not left them running overnight, I would have never known about. So after that, I'm like, I got to keep these going all the time.
Yeah, that's a lot of footage to sift through for sure. Do you want to give a shout out to your fans and tell them where to find you and how to follow you?
Yeah, everyone can find me on Facebook if you search the Dead Chronicles. That's kind of where I live right now. I haven't done much posting because I've been so hard at work on getting this first season done. It's 85% there. I'm hoping that'll be out completely in June or July. But if you guys follow me over there, you'll stay up to date. I will let you guys know when it's out, where it's going. And
your books, they're all, I think, on Amazon, right?
Yeah. Yep, you can find Paranormal Horror and Hell's Carnival both on Amazon. Hell's Carnival just recently got an audiobook. So if you don't like to read, like me, I've not even read my own books. I'm not a reader. You can go listen to the audiobook.
Well, a lot of people do that instead. They listen to the audio instead of read the book. So folks, go listen to his books on audio, Hell's Carnival and the Taylor Mill Horror. You won't be disappointed. And thanks again so much for being on the show. You want to give a shout out to your fans?
Oh, thanks for having me. I don't like the fans word. I don't have those. But I have people who enjoy what I do, and I love them to death right now. And I appreciate them. It's been a long, like I said, this has been 10, 15 years in the making, and there's people who've been watching my stuff since day one, and they're still here. And I appreciate those people so much, and the people who've helped me, especially this season. Part of the reason why it's taking so long, I got hacked and they erased all my hard drives. After I already had 2 episodes completely done. And to go back and try to recover that stuff, I recovered a lot of it, to have to refilm stuff. If it wasn't for these people who supported me and for these people in my circle, this would never happen. And I appreciate all of them more than they'll ever know.
Yeah, for all the folks listening, I always have a backup to the backup.
I did, and that got erased too. So just have a backup to your backup that's not on your network. Take it completely offline.
Listen to Austin. Yeah, we don't want that to happen to anybody's stuff. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, can't wait to see the Dead Chronicles, and tell us where we can watch it and find it when it comes out.
So like I said, just go follow it on Facebook for now. Basically what's happening is I am finishing it. I'm giving it to someone who is then going to pitch it to all the streaming services. So we don't know what streaming services yet, but it's going to be on at least one. So I will announce it as soon as I know on Facebook and let everyone know.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on the show. I'm going to leave you guys with some Boots on the Ground team music by Robert Dumont, now available on all streaming platforms and social media platforms. And you are listening in on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf Coast. And here we go with some BOG team music.